Alrighty, let's go over this Mica Miller investigation report. It's not the autopsy report. There was no autopsy done. So I was sent this report today. It's 4 pages. Of course, I got it from the docket. The docket on YouTube. He's covering that Wade Wilson trial. So I want to go over it with you too. I've linked to him below. Boy, I have so much about Mica Miller I've wanted to cover lately, including John Paul, her husband, pastor, if you will, John Paul Miller's 911 calls. I think I might drop them here. I've already put them on Patreon. I might do a separate video. Pastor, I don't want to call him pastor anymore. I'm like, God, do you still call him pastor? Anyway, John Paul Miller had called the police twice. Now, they've given me 2 of his 911 calls. At first, he's claiming his wife, Mica, was harassing him on social media. That didn't fly. She just posted a Facebook video. She didn't even mention his name. In that video before her death, he was saying, oh, my soon-to-be ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. Her family's harassing me. They're trying to extort me. All this crap that the cops saw through. They wouldn't give me the body cam. South Carolina has laws about body cam.
Myrtle Beach Police and Fire, this is Ashley.
Hey, Ashley, I am being harassed on social media, as well as people texting, this family's texting horrible lies about me, and going to people's work saying things about me and trying to extort me and all this other stuff. Who would I talk to about this?
Okay, where are you located when this is occurring?
I'm in.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of my home base of where this is happening.
Gotcha.
This is happening.
Sure. And do you know these people that are doing this, or is it just sort of like rumors spreading around?
Yes, it's my wife and her family, or soon-to-be ex-wife and her family.
All righty. And what's your name? Hold on for me. Myrtle Beach Police and Fire, are you having an emergency, or can you hold?
What's your guy's name?
I can hold. And a phone number to get you back at. Alrighty. And are you available shortly to take a call from one of our officers?
Yes, I am.
All right. Wonderful. They'll be in touch with.
Thank you.
Of course. Take care.
And then there's another call stating my wife passed away. This is after she died. He's whining about trying to get into her apartment. Thankfully, he couldn't get in there. What was he trying to get anyway?
Myrtle Beach Police and Fire, this is Carly.
Hey, how are you? She passed away a few days ago, and some of her belongings are in an apartment at Market Commons, and the lady that owns the apartment won't let me get that stuff. Is there any way I can have a police officer meet you there so I can just get a few of her belongings?
Okay. What's the address? Okay. Is there a reason why there's...
and meet the...
Yeah, I'll just have you meet in front of the building. Is there a reason why they're saying that you can't get the belongings?
Yeah, it's the old lady that has the apartment, and she just doesn't like me. She just doesn't like me.
Okay. And who is the person that passed to you?
My wife.
Okay. Alrighty. And what's a good callback number for you? Okay. Alrighty, and I'll just have you wait in front of the building to meet with officers, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty. I'll go ahead and send them up there.
Are we hanging up? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And let me ask you, so this is something they'll do. They'll let me get her stuff.
Yeah, I'll have them meet with you, and they'll direct you on what you need to do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
So now let's take a look at this investigation report. There's a lot that went into their whole embattled marriage, and I got at least 21 PDFs of incident reports. And one of them, by the way, was on June 23rd, 2022. There's this incident with the City of Myrtle Beach Police Department. This woman in New Jersey was claiming that the pastor of Solid Rock Ministries was doing something obscene. If you want to read all of those, I've linked to those below. I might put all that in a separate video because I'm still waiting working on more 911 calls. They have denied me Mica's 911 calls. They only released 2 of John Paul's 911 calls to me. They've denied me thus far all of Mica's 911 calls. This is Myrtle Beach Police Department. And maybe it's good they did so, because this is what they said, quote, this is what they wrote me on Friday, June 21st. Myrtle Beach Police Department said, because the investigation remains ongoing, MBPD denies your request for the 911 calls, the dash cam video pursuant to South Carolina Code, and they give the section. Materials are exempt from disclosure where disclosure would interfere with a prospective law enforcement proceeding. So they're still investigating some stuff. All this stuff. Maybe not the one from 2022 where this woman says John Paul Miller sent her some obscene videos and all this stuff, and she called New Jersey police and they said call Myrtle Beach police because it happened down there. But all the other, the campaign of harassment is what I'm calling it, that John Paul enacted against his wife. And I'm still waiting on stuff from the Horry County government too. I've paid for a deposit on other 911 records, so it sounds like they might give me those. So I might put all of that in a future video. If you want to see what I'm talking about, look at the PDFs below, because this video I'm just going to cover the investigation report for Mica. But all those PDFs include stuff like what happened on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022, where it says they spoke to a female stating she's getting lewd comments and photos from a pastor at this church. She filed a report with New Jersey, but New Jersey is stating she needs to file the report with us since it is down here. This woman was claiming John Paul sent her lewd text messages, photos from the offender while she was at her home in New Jersey. The victim states she received a video call from the offender while he was performing an obscene act on June 8th, 2022. So anyway, I won't get all into those now. Let's just cover this sad report. So this is from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services in Raleigh, North Carolina. The decedent, of course, is Mica Miller. They give her apartment address, that apartment that John Paul was trying to get into in Horry County. It just has a date. The date received June 3rd, 2024. So they just finished this 3 weeks ago. It says Mica was 30 years old, a female, white, Hispanic origin, yes. Now, information about the occurrence. Onset of illness or injury was April 27, 2024. We know that's the day that she went to the Lumber River Park and, as they're saying, took her own life. The time is 2:54 p.m. basically. Now, the time of death is listed that same day, April 27th, but it's listed at 4:25 p.m. Maybe that's when they extracted her from the river. We'll have more information below. View of body, April 27th. 2013 is that time, so that would be 8:13 p.m. I'm not sure who viewed her body at that time. The medical examiner was notified that same Saturday at 18:30, so that's 6:30 p.m. Last known to be alive that same day, 14:54, which is 2:54 p.m. They're going to explain that below. So they have the address in Robeson County of the Princess Anne Road, Lumber River State Park. The scene of death, hospital is checked. The morgue is UNC Health Southeastern. Robeson County Sheriff Department was the law enforcement agency, Detective Norris. Autopsy, none. That's going to bother some people. Along with this information about these shell casings, like we've heard her family talk about, which do sound a little bit weird, it says the blood sample was mailed by the medical examiner. Now we've got probable cause of death is gunshot wound of head. And it listed as the S word, taking her own life, which some people just refuse to believe. I know it. It has a pathologist signature scribbled there, and it has a date of June 20th, 2024, I believe that says. Signature of the medical examiner, and that is dated May 15th, 2024, Robeson County. Let's just go over everything. Mica Miller. Now, it doesn't have a lot of things checked. It doesn't have anything checked for her medical history. It just says other, and it says bipolar and a former attempt at taking her own life. No PCP, no primary care physician. So maybe she really didn't have one listed, and maybe, because she wasn't working at the church anymore, and I don't know how church insurance works and all that, she might not have had a primary care physician. They talk about the gun. It's a handgun. The caliber is 9mm. Nothing else in that section. They're asking if the fatal injury occurred on a job. It says no. Non-work related injury, shot self with handgun. Type of place, Lumber River State Park. It gives the address. And it lists it twice. Death occurred while in custody. No, she wasn't in jail or anything like that. She wasn't in a state-operated facility when it happened. Condition, intact. So I believe that means her remains were intact. Rigor, none. So they found her in time enough with her making the call. I'm assuming this means for rigor mortis, it had not set in yet. They are going to explain away those scars on her hand that Mica's family said they saw. Now it does say liver posterior, and that's not like our liver, it's LIVOR. I had to look up each of these. Liver mortis, also known as post-mortem lividity or post-mortem hypostasis, is a post-mortem sign of death that occurs when blood settles in the lowest part of a body due to gravity. So yeah, Joseph Scott Morgan could explain all this a lot better. So it does say posterior liver, so that's different. The posterior would be the back, but we're going to read she was in the prone position. See, some things, don't get me started with this conspiracy theory here, but I know posterior is the back. So why would it be there, further back? A person's buttocks or posterior, the back of you. So if the liver was in the posterior, you would think she would have fallen on her back, but we're going to read that she was in a prone position, which I read is going forward. So, I don't know. Medical experts can look at this and explain it better than I am. I don't want to start with the conspiracy theory. Color, pink, non-fixed. The length of her body is estimated about 5 feet 5 inches tall. She's estimated at about 140 pounds. Al Gore says cool. Algor mortis is the third stage of death, is the change in body temperature post-mortem until the ambient temperature is matched. For her body temperature to be cool might make sense, because we're going to learn, it's confirmed, she was found in the water. I guess it depends on what the water temperature was that day and other aspects. So her Algor was not warm, it was not cold, it was cool. It says her hair color is brown, eyes are brown, teeth are natural, lower and upper natural. Photographs, yes. Radiographs, no. That's one thing. Every no on here is like, oh, I wish you would have done that. Radiography is a medical imaging technique that uses radiation to create pictures of the inside of the body. There was no x-rays, I guess, needed. They thought it was cut and dried. Maybe they didn't know it would be all this controversy in the wake of her death. Her clothing, long sleeve black shirt, black pants, black belt, green bra, a pair of black shoes, and a pair of gray underwear. They talk about her black socks and any valuables. It has that yellow color necklace with clear stone. So we know John Paul was wearing that same necklace because he admitted he got it from her, I guess at the hospital or somewhere, and he was wearing it in that first interview he gave after her death to the news. And you guys, you sleuths, you caught it. Now there was some kind of metallic ring with clear stones. There was a black watch, a black bracelet, and one pair of bird earrings. So when we saw that video of the Ring camera with Mica, wearing her work outfit, black, at her apartment door, and I noticed her earrings, yeah, she must have still had them on. Now we get into the diagrams, which are interesting, which tell us more about how it sadly happened. Mica Miller body diagrams. It's saying the gunshot wound, basically, it was an entrance 4.5 inches from the midline of the head, 1.5 inches to 1/2 inch stellate entrance wound. I did look that up. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. A stellate entrance wound is a star-shaped gunshot wound that occurs when a gun barrel is in contact with bony tissue or skin during firing. Sounds like it was right up close to her head. So yeah, it's very sad. And it talks about with black particulate material deposited along the edges of the wound and within the wound, and an associated circular muzzle imprint, blood present in auditory canal. And then it talks about irregular exit wound. It looks like it's coming out the left temple, 4.5 inches from midline of head, blood present in the auditory canal. So I did check. It looks like Mica is right-handed, and it would make sense that the entrance wound would be on the right. Now, some people might remember that video she did. It was a Vimeo video, and I know this will probably come up. She talked about it was so bad, and she actually has her left hand pointed to her temple, so some people might think she's left-handed. But I went through photos, and in that one, she's holding the mic with her right hand. It would make sense. I've seen her hold the mic with her right hand in other photos, so I believe she truly is right-handed. So I believe it makes sense for this gunshot wound to enter there. Unlike the Brian Laundrie gunshot wound, that never really made sense to me. I think it was with his non-dominant hand, if memory serves. A couple of other interesting things on here. I see it says closed skull fracture right here, closed skull fracture back here. So I'm thinking, was it the force of the gunshot wound that caused a fracture? Didn't break the skin here? Were those previous wounds? I don't know. It talks about her eyebrow tattoo shading, so she must have had, I wonder, like microblading or something done. Circumferential periorbital contusion, so that's just like the bruising, the raccoon eyes. All of this, I'm assuming, is because of the injury of her taking her own life. A tattoo in the color of a butterfly back here, a tattoo band on her left arm. We've seen some of these. Tattoo signature, that John Paul Miller signature. I think I was falling asleep listening to Mica's dad, Michael, talking on some YouTube show. If I remember, I would give it credit, about Mica having John Paul's signature and getting it covered up, but then him encouraging her or whatever to get it re-tattooed on her. And we know that John Paul also has a tattoo of Mica's signature because he was like lifting up his shirt on some, True Crime Marie. He's been speaking out on that TikTok user's account. John Paul has been speaking out, and he showed people his tattoo. And they talk about her tattoo on her right arm with the words pure, humble, faithful encircled. We've seen that. The tattoo on her, I guess her ring finger, there's a tattoo in color on her back of a lotus flower and tattoo of birds on her arm. Yeah, that's the right arm, tattoo of birds. So yeah, she does have a tattoo on her ring finger, and also tattoo of crosses. We've seen all these in photos, but this is what gets me. On Mica's left hand, there are several minute post-mortem wound. It just says wound. Several minute post-mortem wounds, I believe they meant to say, consistent with retrieval from river and brush, including briars. Briars, yeah, like a briar patch. Okay, what's weird about that is post-mortem wounds. Okay, her family called it bruising. They saw bruising on her hand. John Paul is over there on TikTok claiming, there was no bruising on Mica's hands. There was some kind of wounds on her left hand. And people are like, why? Because as you guys have told me, I've seen comments saying, look, you're not going to get bruises after death. You're not going to bruise. Well, this doesn't say bruise. This says wound, singular, several minute post-mortem wound. So it was enough for her family to see it, obviously, on her hand. This is what they were talking about. And I did bring that up. Was it something that happened after, as they were pulling her out of the water? How did they get her out of the water? And can that really happen? Post-mortem wounds consistent with retrieval from the river. I mean, that's what they're saying. I don't know. People will probably latch onto that as much as I'm latching onto these shell casings. So let's read page number 4. Medical Examiner, preliminary summary of circumstances surrounding death. Decedent, 30-year-old female who was visually identified by law enforcement through photo ID. According to decedent family, they had tried to call and text her, Mica, on April 27th, 2024 without success. She was last known alive visually by surveillance camera at gas station 4135 South Highway 41 in Mullins, South Carolina at 13:33. So what does that? I have to do it all in my head. 1:33, and verbally per conversation with 911 dispatcher at 14:54. That is 2:54, in which she asked the dispatcher if the dispatcher could see her location. Mica voiced to 911 dispatcher that she was about to kill herself and wanted her family to be able to find her. The 911 dispatcher confirmed phone number of Mica and location as Lumber River State Park. So I do believe that was Mica. I don't believe it was AI. Believe me, I know AI. I use AI. I've duplicated my own voice successfully many times with AI. I don't think that was AI. I think it was really Mica. Law enforcement was notified and began searching for Mica at Lumber River State Park. So at 15:20, so that's at 3:20, Mica's phone was pinged, and at 15:33, so that's 3:33, took them 13 minutes, law enforcement had drone dispatched to area. At 3:42, Verizon phone carrier was notified for location verification, and then at 3:42, Mica's car was identified at Lumber River State Park in parking lot secured. Maybe they mean and parking lot secured. Law enforcement found in the vehicle a 9mm Sig Sauer hard gun case and receipt showing the weapon was purchased at Dick's Pawn Shop at Myrtle Beach on 4/27/24 at 12:32. She had just purchased the weapon at 12:32. The cop on the dispatch, some people listened to that. He saw the gun case in the car. It sounds like he said, "Oh, gun in the car." So people were like, "Wait, what? Gun is left in the car?" But it was just the case. Law enforcement also confirmed the weapon was purchased with Mica's debit card. At 4:23, law enforcement was alerted by a kayaker a body was found in the river. Now, I don't think we know who this kayaker is. He's different than that Johnny guy who was giving interviews. Law enforcement was also given a black bag with ID and money that was found on bank of river by a person at river. So that's the Johnny guy we've seen in interviews or heard his voice. Law enforcement recovered 2 spent casings and 1 live round on bank of river. Okay, this is the part that's controversial. I don't know hardly jack squat about guns, but this is the part that Mica's dad, Michael, has had an issue with. Now that we see it in an official report, we can talk about it more. There were 2 spent casings and 1 live round on bank of river. And you can go back and watch all the videos of Mica's dad being interviewed. He says Mica knows guns, she knew guns, she would not eject a live round. If someone's going to do that, would they really need to practice? He's talking about finding a round in a tree. This doesn't say where. It just says law enforcement recovered 2 spent casings and 1 live round on bank of river. Yeah, I kind of agree with him. That's weird. First of all, the one guy who's been interviewed said he only heard 1 gunshot. But if there's 2 spent casings, and did they really belong to this exact gun? Did she do a practice shooting somewhere? Maybe in a tree? Did she eject a live round first, do a practice shooting, and then shoot herself? I don't know. That's the part that is questionable. Regional pathologist was called to scene for assistance. Mica was found prone, which I just looked up. That means face down. So wouldn't the lividity be anterior? That's what's a little confusing. Anterior. Anterior means the front side of the body. I don't know about this. I'm just not a conspiracy theorist person, but I really wish they could have done an autopsy and more. So it says decedent was found prone, submerged in river beside tree limbs about 100 feet from casings. Okay, so 100 feet from the casings. How far do casings eject? Casings eject 100 feet away? I don't know. Sig Sauer, I'll look up this type of gun maybe. Don't know. Can they eject that far? How many feet away? I don't know. I don't know how far the recoil is, or how far the casings would eject from the body. That's curious. She was found prone, submerged in river beside tree limbs about 100 feet from casings. Gun experts would have to weigh in here. I don't know about ejecting a live round and then these casings. She was found prone, submerged in river beside tree limbs about 100 feet from casings. Maybe that's possible. No signs of physical struggle at location of casing. Mica was removed from water by law enforcement in a boat and brought to bank of river. Bank of river was muddy and had heavy brush with briars. It's kind of hard to get this in your mind because we don't know where she was found prone, submerged in river beside tree limbs. We don't know how far away that was from the bank. We just don't get that information. I don't think we get that anywhere. How far away was Mica's body found from the bank of the river? But the bank of the river was muddy, had heavy brush with briars. Decedent had dirt and debris on her hands and clothing. Okay, at 7:11 p.m., a 9mm Sig Sauer pistol was removed from the river approximately 5 feet from the bank using a magnet, and serial number on the gun matched the gun case found in Mica's car. They found the 9mm many hours later, 7:11 p.m., only 5 feet approximately from the bank using a magnet. Was that exactly where Mica's body was found? 5 feet from the bank? You know, at first they extracted her body. Of course, they were more concerned about her, and then they found the gun, but we don't know where the gun was found in relation to her body. Medical records documented Mica was hospitalized. They go into November 29th, 2022 until December 5th, 2022 on suicidal precautions for bipolar 1, recurrent manic episode, tetrahydrocannabidiol, I'm just going to say THC dependence, and dependent personality disorder. So dependent on like marijuana. Mica was hospitalized again. We heard about this one February 7th until February 12th, secondary to emergency protective custody by her therapist. There's all this controversy about that. Mica will claim, before she unfortunately passed away, that John Paul had her committed against her will. And if you go through those PDFs linked to below, you will see other circumstances talking about that. And there's a long one, how she was at that Waccamaw. Yeah, so this talks about that. The November one, that hospitalization, there's more details to that. On Monday, November 28th, there was an incident report that revealed this dramatic incident at the Waccamaw Mental Health Facility. So that's the same place Mica claimed John Paul had institutionalized her against her will, later in February of 2024. But back on November 28th, 2022, I got this incident report. There were obviously 3 people involved. Now, everything's redacted, but I asked for everything related to Mica and John Paul at a certain address, so I assume it's Mica, John Paul, and there's a female there who's trying to explain to cops she's fighting on Mica's behalf. She's trying to get them to understand all this mental abuse that Mica's been under. The incident report reads as follows. On 28 November 2022, reporting officer responded to a call for service at Waccamaw Mental Health, and it gives the address in Horry County, in reference to a female locked in the bathroom with an unknown condition. On scene, WMH workers informed officers that the female has exited the bathroom and was sitting in the passenger seat of a burgundy Ram truck in the parking lot with a male who is trying to take her from the scene. I'm assuming that's John Paul. Officers located the truck and both occupants. While speaking with the female, later identified as 02, the male, identified as 03, would interrupt her answers and not allow her to speak to officers. WMH workers advised the reporting officer that the female appeared to be extremely weak when she was inside the building, and stated she passed out both in the lobby and the bathroom, and they feared she was under the influence. Reporting officer was approached by the female identified as 01. 01 stated that her blank and blank drove here separately without 03 to get 02 mental help, and it's redacted. 01 stated that 03 pulled up, went inside, wouldn't allow 02 to get the help she needed, and instead brought her out to his truck and wouldn't let her out. 01 further stated this has been an ongoing issue between the group, and just weeks prior, 02 left the area seeking help in Cherokee County in an attempt to leave 03. While away, 03 allegedly had a mental breakdown and stated he was suicidal, resulting in Myrtle Beach Police Department conducting welfare checks on him. 01 stated that 03 has been mentally abusing 02 for an extended period of time by not allowing her to eat, sleep, or contact her family. Now that falls in line with what Mica's family has said about Mica trying to fall asleep and like John Paul allegedly using these torture techniques, throwing water on her, blasting loud music. Due to the unknown circumstances surrounding this incident, officers on scene separated the parties, which finally allowed HCFR to speak with O2, so that's Horry County, to speak with O2 alone and determined she needed to go to the hospital. O3 was unhappy about being separated and made a call to who he stated was Lieutenant Wilson. John Paul's trying to pull rank here. O3 was still being kept distant to blank while the investigation took place. O2 decided to go voluntarily with HCFR to blank for a mental health evaluation. While leaving on the stretcher, O1 was allowed to make contact with O2 so personal items could be secured. O3 was upset about this, but was told due to the circumstances of the situation, he was being kept away from O2. O3 again called Lieutenant Wilson and advised the reporting officer, "You will be getting a call." Can't you see John Paul saying that? O3 then walked to the far side of the parking lot away from the incident location. HCFR transported O2 and all officers on the scene cleared. O1 requested that this incident be documented in a report. So I wonder if that was Mica's sister. It sounds like Mica was in some kind of a state. I don't know why. That's what this November 29th, 2022 through December 5th, 2022 hospitalization was all about. Sad. And then again, there was the February 2024 hospitalization where Mica said she was tricked. She didn't want to go. They talk about medical records stated 2 prior mental health hospitalizations and a previous attempt with a firearm. I'm assuming they're talking about the time that Mica told the audience in Africa that she did put a gun to her head and thought about actually taking her own life, but the gun jammed. Records on February 7th, 2024 also state Delta 8 gummy consumption and increased paranoia with bizarre behavior. Mica's family did confirm her previous attempt by firearm. On April 24th, 2024, Mica's records stated she was seen and given a prescription for hydroxyzine, 25 milligrams for anxiety. Regional pathologists assisted and examined Mica. The exam was consistent with the reported incident. Upon further consultation with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner and law enforcement, there was no concern for foul play and an autopsy was not warranted. I'm sure a lot of people will think an autopsy was warranted because it's just sad because of everything Mica's gone through. But I'm holding on to hope because they did not fulfill my request for Mica's 911 calls because it's an ongoing investigation. I don't know exactly what they're investigating, what can be done here, but I really think something can happen. I don't know where John Paul's responsibility lies in all of this, and maybe even new laws would have to be enacted. I will just say I don't think God is pleased with his behavior at all. He's busy doing reputation damage control and, talking to TikTokers and trying to get his side out, and he's busy talking about, I can give you tons of evidence of Mica, not liking her family and not liking this and that, and God knows where it will all end up. God knows everything Mica has gone through her entire life, and I'm not trying to say she didn't have issues. We don't know how many of them were exacerbated by what she called the grooming of this husband of hers at a young age. I mean, they met when she was like 14 or 15. She became his nanny, his church secretary. His ex-wife has gone on record to say everything John Paul has confessed to her. It just is time for this exposure. And I'm not into judging people harshly, but everything that happened to Mica, it just seems wrong. And I think she is getting her justice now by exposing what she's gone through. Sounds like she was just trying to get out of this marriage, like no matter how I got in it and how all that happened, obviously she wanted out of it and she just didn't make it out. Maybe she thought she just couldn't make it out. I don't know, there are some questions there. Let me know what you guys think about the casings. I don't know a lot about that. And what about her being prone, but the lividity being in the posterior? There are questions I have. I hope people can dig into this report and we can really get it going. And I will wait maybe to go over all these PDFs. If you want to read them now, they're linked to below. I'll probably wait to put all of that in a huge video when I finally get the rest of the 911 calls, whatever Horry County is going to release to me. I mean, they make me do things through snail mail, so it's taken a while. I had to send a $50 deposit. They're estimating it'll be $200. So I'm waiting for them to say, okay, when can I send the other $150? And is that the right estimate? Are they gonna send them to me on CD or who knows what? Let's close with 2 Corinthians 5:8. We are, as I was saying, of good courage and confident hope, and prefer rather to be absent from the body and to be at home with the Lord. Thank God Mica had gotten rebaptized. Not that it was necessary. You know, she has her faith in God, obviously. I'm not saying it was God's will for her to do what she did at all. And I really do think she took her own life. I think she gave up, but there are certain things that do make you question it, makes you wonder. I know a lot of people go off into that corruption and cover up land. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I just wish we had even more evidence. I don't know where she was found on the bank. I don't know what was up with those shell casings. I don't know what was up with that live round. I don't know what was up with really the, wounds or minimal or whatever they call them on her left hand. I don't know what was up with that stuff and the rush to get her cremated. The whole situation just stinks. It's just horrible. But John Paul Miller, he's getting his comeuppance. He can try and sue whomever he wants. This is based on official reports here, and I tend to just stay with the official, and of course I inject my opinion, and especially as a Christian, which is first and foremost my identity, I feel like God gives us so many chances, but I feel like John Paul, his life, he's being exposed. And he can try and threaten to sue as many people as he wants and come with all this hubris of all his evidence and everything. I just don't think he was a good husband. I don't think he's a good pastor. It's just kind of watching his sermons are kind of like, even listening to his voice sounded so weird. I was watching someone, Stephanie Harlow. Oh, that's another whole case. I've been delving off into that case controversy today too. That might be an upcoming video, but just listening to John Paul's voice was like, ick, there's something wrong there. And now we know more of it. And he should know, of all people, you gotta submit yourself to God. You gotta we all have to humble ourselves before God. Submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and he will flee. Humble ourselves, and in due time, God will exalt us. It's not you come fighting back with these, and I got all the evidence, and I've got all the proof, and look, Francis family, you drove her to that, and all of that won't cut it. It won't cut it. And I think that's why he's being exposed. I mean, he could take his part in it. He could take his lumps. He could, confess like, okay, I wasn't the perfect husband, but it doesn't seem like he's taking that route. And now we have Mica's report. I know some people won't believe it. Some people will. I'll probably do another video about her once I get whatever they give me. I don't know how long the investigation is going to take, whatever exactly they're investigating. If it's money, because there's some reports in there about, alleged stolen money and all this stuff, this campaign of harassment, I think that was being lobbied against Mica, and it probably just felt overwhelming to her. We'll get there. Check the links below. I'm going to end it here. But yeah, let me know what you think about some of those inconsistencies and whether you think it truly was her taking her own life. Just a sad, sad case. And if anything, I hope the exposure that comes with it is worth it. That people can really know wolf in sheep's clothing, what to look out for, and whatever is being investigated, I hope justice comes. Justice for Mica. Thanks for watching.